when you're at that phase of your brand where you're ready to get noticed and have eyes on you, what does that process look like? What are the steps that you should follow? Now, I want to kind of put a little caveat out there that before you get noticed, we highly, highly, highly recommend that you stop and get clear first. So if you haven't done that, go back and watch that video where we talk through that process of getting clear on you, on where you are right now, what you stand for right now, and how you want to put that out into the world.
Yeah, you don't want to get noticed for the wrong things.
That's so true.
Say it.
So once you've gotten clear and you know what your business stands for and exactly what your ideal clients need from you right now, now it's finally time for you to step into that phase where you can get noticed. And Gretchen, tell us a little bit from your perspective about what getting noticed is and how you like to help clients do that.
Well, getting noticed for a lot of people, they think, oh, I'm just gonna put my website up with a pretty face on it. It looks professional. It looks pretty. That's good enough. That's gonna get me noticed. And that's not exactly how it works. It's not a if you build it, they will come kind of scenario. You have to promote yourself. You have to get out there and you have to get noticed. So getting the design, getting the website out there, that's just one piece of it. But another thing about getting noticed is, first of all, are you getting noticed by the right people?
Yeah.
Because if you're not, then you're doing all this work for nothing. And I would say then the other thing about getting noticed is just making sure that your brand is cohesive across all of your channels.
Yeah.
Because all the places that people are going to find you, because you're going to have to put yourself out there. Again, it's not a build it and they will come. You got to put yourself out there. So when you put yourself out there on the social media channels, you got to make sure that your brand matches everywhere, because the rule of thumb is they got to see you like 7 times before they kind of recognize you. But if they're seeing 7 different versions of you, they're not going to recognize you.
Yeah. And, some people might think that that's only important when you're just starting out and that, oh, the longer that I have my brand, the easier it's going to be for people to recognize me. There's some truth to that, but this is also a trap that we see a lot of brands fall into when they've grown, when they've been around 8, 10, 15 plus years. It's really easy to only think about what are the platforms that I'm on most often. So let's say the way that you find your clients, you're an established thought leader, your brand has been around for a while. So you're spending time speaking from stages, or you are on television, or you're spending a lot of time on social media or with affiliate partners promoting the programs that you have. What happens is if you aren't thinking about where you're sending them in the long run, you're going to lose them. I had this experience back in 2017 where we were at an industry event together. We were going to a mastermind event. There was a speaker that I knew was going to be there. I was so excited to see him. Like I already, like I sat down before he even came on stage and like had the credit card out. Like it was that kind of situation. And I was so excited to see him speak and teach on his expertise. The speech was fantastic. What he was promoting was fantastic. I was ready to take action. And then by the time I followed his little QR code and went to his website, it looked awful. Like it didn't have any of the quality of how he carried himself, how he was speaking from stage, how he was promoting the product and the training that he had. And so I didn't take action. No, this is someone I had followed for a while. This is someone that I was ready to move forward with, but I had this massive loss of trust because what he was saying from stage and what he was explaining as ways that he could serve his people sounded so fantastic. But then when I actually got to the landing page and to the website, it was incongruent. So that is one of the ways that I think established thought leaders really need to take that time to step back. And again, as we mentioned in our last video, get clear on where they are today, but also make sure that where you're directing people is something you want to get noticed for. Like, is it congruent? Is it going to help people really carry on that know, like, trust factor? And if your brand isn't doing that in all of the different channels, then that's something that you really need to go back and consider. Because ultimately getting noticed is, yes, it's about attracting eyes to you, but it's also about making that audience feel seen. Like they need to land there. It needs to feel completely congruent. They need to see themselves. They need to see a hero story for themselves of how they get to step up and be the hero because of how you're guiding them. And if that's not happening, I'm telling you, you are leaving money on the table every time.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed when we're working with clients who need a rebrand, they when they're sending traffic somewhere, they're sending it from social media sometimes to other platforms that aren't their website, and then those don't look like their website, and that causes a point of confusion, like it's a third party payment gateway or something, and they don't have control over branding that, or they
Or
didn't
the
bother to
landing
brand it.
page.
They didn't bother to brand it in the first place. They're using the default template. It's
Yeah.
just plain. It doesn't even have their logo on it. I mean, every payment gateway that we've worked with, there's usually some level of customization. At the very least, you can change a color and it'll put the logo on there to make it match what you have. That's an important step, because that there's a trust factor there. You're all of a sudden they're seeing your brand and your logo and your things, and then they're sent to a payment gateway that's just like, wait, am I in the wrong place, right place? You know, it puts a level of confusion in there that's not needed. And the other thing to remember is all roads lead to your website.
Yes.
And if your website looks outdated, doesn't match what you have on social media, again, that's that trust factor that Trina was talking about earlier. And that's the thing you've got to avoid if you want to make the sale.
And I think it's also, even when you know that it's incongruent, you're carrying around this little bit of shame that ends up showing. Like, even if you're the most well-developed speaker and you're used to selling from stage or through webinars or whatever the case is, there's always like this little bit of hesitancy to send them to the website or to that landing page, because oh crud, this isn't congruent. This hasn't been kept up to date. And so that's one of those things to look out for.
I think that's also important, because I think we see a lot of clients who use external third-party tools. I won't name all the tools that they use, but there's a lot of them. Y'all know what they are. But they use those tools because they're like, well, my website's outdated, but I could go over here and I could use this tool because I can just point and click and I can make this quick design and I can do this thing, and I've got a funnel, and that's all great, and those tools can do those things, and I'm not, again, bashing the tools, but when you do that and now that tool looks different from your website,
right?
And what's funny, I find, and now this is coming from the developer in me, in the 20 plus years I've been doing development, it always cracks me up when someone goes and uses one of these third party tools, when you could do the exact same thing with your website if you just had someone who knew how to do it. And it would save you so much time and so much money, because you would be using your existing tools.
Yes. And the whole purpose of getting noticed, obviously, is to have that instantly recognizable brand. Like, regardless of where they're hearing about you, where they're finding you, it's that, yes, that the logo is congruent, but also the colors, the fonts, but even the way you speak is congruent. Are you speaking from stage using the same terminology that is going to be on your website or on your landing page? Are you even carrying that through to your product packaging? The descriptions that you have about your product or your food or the course that you're selling, like, is that language congruent all the way through? So, the idea of getting noticed is really to make sure that you're bringing it to life in ways that your customer can't ignore, that they just really feel like, okay, this is exactly who this person is. They know who they are, and they know who they are everywhere. It's the same regardless of where you go.